All right, welcome to March 9th, 2022. It is Scrum and Wine time for our March. Let's get started with small bites. I'm Sherman Gomberg, your host tonight. We have a special guest that I'll introduce to everybody in a moment. Sean, if you would, do you mind admitting people as they come on in while I go through?
Happy to.
Awesome, thanks so much. All right, Scrum and Wine. All right, what's going on in the world of Agile? Let's start with the certified Scrum developer. I love telling everybody about this. If you are a developer on the team and not just a programmer, I mean, if you are developing the product, I don't care whether you're doing hardware, software, whether you are a programmer, front end, back end, full stack, whether you're a QA, whether you're user experience, whether you're a security analyst, database analyst, any of those types of functions, this course is for you. This will teach you how to act on a Scrum team. And the programming that we do in this particular class is all simulated through a really cool tool that we use called Scratch, if anybody's have heard of it, something that was published by MIT. So everybody can do that and they learn how to work together on a team. I also highly recommend Scrum Masters and coaches absolutely should be coming to this course. Product owners, it'd be great to have you too. As we move on from the Scrum developer into the advanced, then we get more into the actual programming aspect. But the first one in this certification track, absolutely learn what it's like to be on a team. Got a course coming up next week. It's an afternoon course. I do have space available in that. We do a good number of people. This course is getting more popular. The last one, we actually sold out our February class, which was pretty cool. It's gotten more popular over the last year. But this March one, we're doing an afternoon class. We have a little bit more space because we didn't pull people from Europe. Being an afternoon class, I knew it would be a little bit more US focused. The one in April, which you can see there, April 11th through 14th, that one's early in the morning for us on the West Coast, but very friendly for anybody else in the country and very friendly for Europe. So those classes get more popular because I always do get people from Europe in these morning classes now because they love to come to them, especially since we do it over 4 days. It's based or 3 or 4 days. So it's usually 3 or 4 hour time block per day, which makes it pretty friendly for everybody. So if you want to know more about that class, ask me after our presentation, but highly recommend you check these out. Okay, next up, we got Agile Open Northwest coming in 2022. Agile Open Northwest is a nonprofit alliance of Agile practitioners in the US Pacific Northwest region. They present their 16th annual Open Space Conference about Agile practices and techniques. It is held March 28th through the 30th. So that's coming up later this month. 4 hours each day, and they're dedicated to a low-cost conference and are pleased to hold the rate to only $60 for the 3-day event. So if you want to know more about this, this is www.agileopennorthwest.org. So check them out, low-cost way of getting some open space, especially if you happen to be in the Northwest. It'd be nice to connect with people in that area or close. I think all of us in California, we feel like the Northwest is part of our territory too, so go for that. All right, what else is coming up here? This one I was not familiar with, so my team kind of found this. So let's learn what this is about. Inflectricon, so fun name. 2022 is a 2-day multi-track conference celebrating all things software development, getting into testing, Agile, DevOps, cyber, leadership, and innovation. It is set in the heart of the nation's capital. Inflectricon will have multiple conference tracks and feature a robust training and certification component for the users of our award-winning platforms called Spira and Rapice. Not familiar with those, but you can learn them. The event is held in person in Washington, D.C. on May 5th and 6th. So if you happen to be on the East Coast, this might be a great way to get in person for a couple days and get familiar with some of the tracks that is going on there, inflectricon.com. Okay, another one coming up here, Agile and Beyond 2022. This event brings together technology leaders, engineers, designers, product owners, and executives for world-class sessions focused on agility, software engineering, and lean business. Agile and Beyond conference will consist of breakout sessions on May 24th and 25th, so a couple months from now. Breakout sessions will last from 45 minutes or 100 minutes in length and cover Agile and Beyond Agile themed topics. Each day will start with a keynote that will help set the tone for the day and end with social events that will allow us all to reconnect. Woohoo for social events. We need those. It's been too long. agileandbeyond.com/2022. Check that out. That's in Detroit, Michigan. Okay, here's one of my favorites. I'm really going to give a big shout out for this. I am part of the program advisory team for the Global Scrum Gathering here in Denver 2022. This is a Scrum Alliance hosted event. This will be our first event back in person since the before. So super excited to do this. And we're actually running this as a hybrid. We're going to have 500 people in person in Denver, Colorado, and everyone else will be online and can join, and we'll have hybrid events. Some people will do virtual, some people in person, some can join in both ways. So it's going to be a great experiment to bring hybrid together in person, along with those who want to join from around the world and are not able to travel and be in Denver for whatever reason they can't get there. Scrum Alliance has proudly hosted our signature global Scrum gathering since 2013. And we turn them into the not to be missed event. Agile practitioners from our community around the world come together to learn, grow, connect, and inspire one another. And today registration just opened. So if you're interested in this event, registration is now open. They just opened it today. You can find this at scrumalliance.org. So go to scrumalliance.org and you'll see the Global Scrum Gathering, and come join us there. So it'll be a lot of fun. And if anybody is going, please connect with me and let me know that you'll be there, because I will be there in person. As long as I stay healthy, I am there. I've already booked everything too. All right, next up, Agile USA Testing Days. The Agile Testing Days USA reach out to all software engineer and testing professionals. This conference provides a fun platform to connect and network in the Agile community. Equip your team with new methods and a mindset to take your projects to a new level. This is going to be in Chicago. That's my hometown. So if you're going to be in Chicago in June, then go ahead and join this event, agiletestingdays.us, agiletestingdays.us. This presentation is available for you guys, and all these pages are hyperlinked. So you can download this later towards the end of our meetup today. All right, Agile and DevOps. This is one that is a little bit more common. They've been around for a little while. Agile and DevOps West brings together practitioners seeking to accelerate the delivery of reliable, secure software applications. Find out how the practice of Agile and DevOps brings cross-functional stakeholders together to deliver software with greater speed and agility while meeting quality and security demands. Learn from industry experts how your organization can leverage Agile and DevOps concepts to improve deployment frequency and time to market, reduce that lead time, and more successfully deliver stable new features. agiledevopswest.techwell.com. And this is going to be in Las Vegas, the City of Lights. Let's get there. All right, one of my favorite places to go to. I've been there once and would love to go back there. XP, Extreme Programming 2022 in Copenhagen, Denmark. Yeah, that picture right there, I've actually seen that. I've been there, I walked that street. So amazing city. XP is the premier Agile software development conference to combine both research and practice. It is a unique forum where Agile researchers, practitioners, thought leaders, coaches, and trainers get together to present and discuss their most recent innovations and research results. The theme for XP 2022 is Agile in the era of hybrid work. Awesome concept, something I was just talking about when we were starting our meetup here, how to get together and how to work in a hybrid. I got to practice that last week, and lots to learn. I got a lot of learning objectives. And if anybody wants to learn what I learned about hybrid, we can do that during our Lean Coffee and Open Space too. So I'd love to share that. You can find this at Agile Alliance. This is an Agile Alliance hosted event, agilealliance.org/XP 2022. Oops, clicking too much. Okay, Agile 2022 in Nashville. So this is Agile Alliance's premier global conference. Like Scrum Alliance has their global Scrum gathering. This is Agile Alliance's. They're getting back together for their global one, and they're going to be in Nashville in July. So we got Scrum Alliance's in Denver in June and Agile Alliance's in Nashville in July. So hopefully you can make one or two of those. So in Nashville, don't miss it. Agile Alliance's annual conference is dedicated to exploring, innovating, and advancing Agile values and principles and creating a space for people and ideas to flourish. The conference brings Agile communities together year after year to share experiences and make new connections. Join passionate Agilists from around the world to learn about the latest practices, ideas, and strategies in Agile software development from the world's leading experts, change agents, and innovators. Also at agilealliance.org/Agile 2022. Welcome to Vienna. So we love Europe. Agile Vienna, October 6, 2022. Agile Vienna will nourish and cultivate the Agile mindset. The theme is Agile transformation, how to spark, drive, and communicate change. In this conference, you will be challenged on how to spark, drive, and communicate that change. Which approach do you take? Is it measurable? Visionaries and companies will share their stories, high-quality workshops, and an open space complements the learning. www.agile-vienna.com. Lisbon, Global Scrum Gathering. So we got the Global Scrum Gathering in Denver. We're also going to go back to Europe this year for Scrum Alliance, and we're going to be in Lisbon in October. Join us there. I hope to be in Lisbon. That's my plan. My plan is to go to the Denver and the Lisbon one. Those are the two that I want to join this year. We are so excited that Global Scrum Gathering in Lisbon is finally happening. After a 2-year hiatus, you can look forward to valuable learning curated by you, our Agile community. We aim to amplify the voices and mastery of our emerging leaders and skilled professionals, and more importantly, be together again to celebrate agility. Okay, reminder, there's an Agile coaching report that came out. The second one came out in February here. So look for that. It should be published here. And I think you can find that on the Scrum Alliance website. So it's published by Scrum Alliance, Business Agility Institute, and IC Agile to capture and share a point of time synopsis of the Agile coaching industry. So the last report was released, the 2021 was released in February 2021, but the 2022 should be released. I haven't looked at it yet. So if you see it out there, great, check it out. See what's going on in coaching and what other coaches are saying, because those are the ones that are surveyed for this. Shout out to our proprietary Kadomi.co. Kadomi is an Agile transformation toolkit. Let us be your Agile guide in order to accomplish a transformation to an Agile coacher. We developed Kadomi. Kadomi is the scaled Agile transformation framework to guide organizations from their current state towards agility. This is done by establishing enterprise-wide Agile teams, forming Agile leaders, and measuring progress along the Agile journey. Our Kadomi ecosystem helps you understand that each organization's transformation journey is unique. Its adaptable and customizable framework consists of teams, programs, and products to act as your Agile guide. Learn about Kadomi at kadomi.co. To go along with that, we have some Kadomi tools. Kadomi tools, we just added another one. We have a Sprint Capacity Planner. Help your team learn about Sprint Capacity Planner. That's been live for about a year now, where you can bring in capacity and velocity along with yesterday's weather to be a little bit more predictive and look for trends on your team and your multiple teams, see how they're doing, so you can make sure you can deliver the most value and be a little bit more predictable about what's going on. So that's on our Kadomi Tools platform. You can find that at kadomitools.com. Here's a sample of the dashboard that's on there for the Sprint Capacity Planner. And I don't have a slide for this, but we just launched, and I'm super excited about this, our agility metrics program, which helps you measure your Scrum events based on a rubric. The rubric is pretty powerful. Helps you figure out for the events, are we underperforming, are we norming, or are we high performing? And what you can do in order to move forward from that underperforming to achieve high performing. What should you do as a Scrum Master? How do you guide? How do you help your team? So that agility metrics program is being added in increments because we're an Agile company. So find that at kadomitools.com also. So check that out. It's free to join. There's a subscription model, but if you guys want a free service for a little while, I love feedback. So feel free to say, I really want to do that. Just ask me and I can add you to the free program for probably the next 6 months. I think I have a free program till September, but I'd love to get you on the premium tier. And as long as you're willing to give me feedback. So I want feedback because feedback is how we thrive and how we improve products. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend of at least 20 years or more, Sean.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Sean Barrett. So Sean Barrett, a little bit about Sean. He helps people figure out how to be happy. He's retired after 35 years in IT program management. He's a certified teacher of emotional intelligence and a certified practitioner of trauma-sensitive mindfulness. Sean is going to introduce flight, fight, freeze, Fawn, and Fooey, managing other people's stress. So I'm going to turn this over to Sean, and he's going to walk us through. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. There, can you all see that?
Perfect.
All right. So, hey, thank you for the introduction, Sherman. Yeah, you pretty much got that right. I'm Sean Barrett. I was everything from a developer to a technical architect, a project manager, a program manager over the course of 35 years. I retired about 4 years ago. I am still a project management professional. I still have the PMI ACP certification. I let my certified Scrum Master certification drop a couple of years ago because I just wasn't using it, but I still remember what it's like. Now I have the pleasure of doing what I want to do, which is, as Sherman said, I help people figure out how to be happy. I have my company Up Optics, and I teach emotional intelligence in all of its forms. In particular, I focus on what I know, which is corporate IT and corporate environments in general. My usual program, my standard workshop takes about 12 hours, so I should have you out of here by tomorrow, close of business. Except that what I'm going to do instead is just give you one example of how emotional intelligence can make you a better agile developer in anything that you are applying agile to. Because emotional intelligence, of course, is working with other people, and that's what a development team consists of, is other people. So I am going to assume, for the sake of our quick conversation here, that you have understood emotional intelligence. And just to be extra special good, I'm going to assume that you have completed Sherman's course and you are a certified Scrum developer. So we can assume that your team has been working extremely well. Everything has been going smoothly up till this point. In fact, let's imagine that we are the product owner of a Scrum team. And as I say, everything has been going particularly well. As the product owner, you are reporting up to a product manager. The product manager reports up to the director of application development, let's say. And everything has been going so smoothly that the product manager is taking a well-deserved vacation for a week. And so temporarily, we, the product owner, are going to be talking directly to the director. Well, let's assume that you know each other. You're not particularly close, but you have good reputation with each other. In other words, everything is going absolutely great until you come into the office Monday morning and you get your cup of coffee and you read your email. And we see in our email a message from the vendor that says the essential network interface cards, which were guaranteed to be delivered this afternoon, won't be here, and we don't know when they will be here. Something about a trucker protest blocking the highway, and we don't know when that's going to clear up. And when this happened to me in real life, it was a longshoreman strike down at the Port of Long Beach. But those network cards aren't going to show up anytime in the foreseeable future. Now, as the work has been going quite smoothly, this does not bring the entire effort to a screeching halt like it would with a waterfall development plan. You have a backlog that you can draw from and you can continue development, but it's not going the way it was originally laid out. And you're going to have to let people know what this is going to do. So a lot of the stories in the backlog are going to depend on these network interface cards. And we don't know when they're going to come in. So we've got a couple of things in our arsenal that we can do. The first thing you're going to do is not go running up to the director's office. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get more smart. We are going to get together with not the entire team. They've got other stuff to do. We're going to talk to the Scrum Master. We're going to talk to the subject matter experts. We're going to talk to a minimal team to understand what's going on. Now, Why are we talking about this? This is just project management stuff. This isn't emotional intelligence. Well, it's going to pay off in the next step, because the first thing you want to do is make sure you completely understand the situation. Obviously, this isn't going as smoothly as you hoped it would, but what exactly is the effect? Can we get some numbers together? What is this going to do to our capacity for this week? What's it going to do to our capacity for next week? What does it, how is this going to affect our metrics? And you're not going to be able to pull that up until you talk to the people involved. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, because the last thing you want to do is go in there all excited and catastrophic and get everybody panicking. So the very first thing you're going to do is get your own poop in a group and understand what this means from your perspective. We're not going to get into that a whole lot tonight. We're going to assume that you are taking care of your own emotional weather system. And then you go and you gather up some information, and then you go up to the director's office. And you remember what Colonel Chris Hadfield says: there's no problem so bad that you can't make it worse. And we're going to try to avoid doing that. So what is your purpose in talking to this director? Why are you doing this? Well, the director's going to want to know what's going on in the project. Sure. What do you want to accomplish as you fulfill this duty of keeping the director informed? You probably don't want the director coming down to the Scrum room and helping out. That really doesn't work very well. At least it didn't back when I was doing this a few years ago. So what you want to do is assure the director that, yeah, this happened. We're not going to deny it. We're not going to be dishonest about it, but we want to convey that everything is under control. It will have effects, but there are effects that we can manage. So you come up to the office here and you knock on the door. Got a sec? The director was doing something. Whatever the director was doing, working on other projects, reading other status reports, thinking about how she's going to report up to the vice president, playing Minesweeper. She was doing something when you knocked on the door. She looks up from her screen. She sees you standing there. You do not have a box of donuts in your hand, so she knows that was the last hope that this is going to be a good meeting. What she sees when she sees you standing there may very well trigger a reaction, because there is no way the conversation that is about to happen is going to make her day better. She knows what your job is, and she knows that you weren't supposed to be there this morning. This is not a scheduled meetings. Now, you cannot prevent that instantaneous reaction when she looks up and sees you and knows that there is something wrong. However, you can understand what is going on in her head, literally what is going on in her brain. Brain consists of a whole lot of different little sub-organs that network together with each other and a different set of each other in different ways and create a bunch of different networks, all of which have purposes. And in this particular case, the network that is getting fired up as she sees you standing there is called the salience network. It's the set of organs within the brain that's focused on identifying what is salient in the environment, meaning what is important, what is happening right now that I have to do something about. And you can see this little heuristic diagram of the brain I have here. Please do not attempt to use this diagram to do brain surgery. It is not that accurate, but it can identify some parts. In particular, there's this organ called the amygdala down here at the bottom. This is a very, very old part of the brain, and it's actually pretty simple. The amygdala evolved a long time ago, long before we were anything like humans. The amygdala has one job and one job only, and that job is don't get eaten. Originally, the amygdala had one answer to that. How do I not get eaten? I get out of here. I leave. I fly. I flee. As we as animals got a little bit bigger, the option to fight came into play. And now the amygdala had to figure out whether it wanted to run away or it wanted to do battle. And so another organ got involved. This is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a kind of memory, but it's not memory like we humans think of. It doesn't have words. It doesn't have a sense of time. What it has is a sense of this made us safe. This made us unsafe. Fighting something bigger than us is unsafe. We don't particularly want to do that if we can possibly avoid it. Running away from something that is much smaller than us is a waste of energy. It's not as bad as getting eaten, but we want to avoid that if possible. If we can roar or whatever and make the small thing run away, then the fight reaction is more appropriate. And so all of these features of the brain, this whole salience network operates, and because we're a computer-oriented group, I'll go ahead and say it's got a very fast clock. It operates in tenths, it operates in hundredths of a second. At the speed of reflex is around a tenth of a second. So the amygdala makes its decision, and we're starting to move within a tenth of a second, either for or against whatever's happening. Meanwhile, this Johnny-come-lately part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the thing that thinks in words, the thing that is listening to me right now, it operates with a clock speed of whole seconds. It can take 1 or 2 seconds for you to turn around, see something, realize what it is, go, oh my goodness, that's a tiger, by which point the amygdala has already got your feet running away. So there is no way we're going to get out in front of the amygdala. What we're going to have to do is have its reaction occur and then control it. Because all of this stuff evolved hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, and most of the pre-programmed reactions are not appropriate for an office building. Running, screaming away is probably not the thing that you actually want to do at the office, nor is screaming and leaping and getting into a fight with somebody. So there's already a process in place of damping down those reactions, but the adrenaline still gets pumped out. The big muscles of the body still get increased blood flow. And all of these physiological reactions that are preparing our body for dramatic action need energy. And something like 40% of the energy budget of our bodies goes to this big old thing up under our foreheads called the prefrontal cortex. And the amygdala has no idea what that thing does except to waste a lot of energy. Standing around thinking doesn't keep us alive. So our body's reaction actually draws glucose, blood glucose, out of the prefrontal cortex, shutting down our higher functions. And this is what's known as an amygdala hijack, as Dr. Martin Seligman calls it. It's an overwhelming emotional response. It's driven by the chemicals that are pumping our body up for a fight or a flee. And it's out of proportion to the actual stimulus because we're in the modern world and the stimuli don't actually match up with what we're programmed for. This is all what we're trying to avoid or control or damp down as we go on with this conversation we're having with the director. Now, I mentioned that the hippocampus remembers in its own way what happens when we take different actions. And over the hundreds of millennia, it's actually come up with 4 answers to the problem of how do we not get eaten. And so we actually have a bit of a flow chart here. Now, remember, all of this is happening within a few hundredths of a second. We have the stimulus, tiger. The first thing the hippocampus wants to know is it bigger than us? Okay, fight or flee. Did I win? Yay. Did I get away? Yay. If those aren't going to work, For example, I'm trapped in an office and this person is standing in my doorway. I can't do either of those things. Well, the next thing on the menu is freeze in place and hope that the monster, the thing that's going to eat me, doesn't notice me. Maybe my camouflage will let me blend into the background. Is that going to work? No. Okay, maybe I can just be too cute to be eaten. Now, none of these responses are appropriate in the office environment, in the modern urban environment. And particularly in American business, the Fawn reaction of, oh, well, I think you can handle it. Don't bother me with it. I know you can take care of it, is not something that an executive is going to do. They didn't get to be an executive if they have a functional Fawn reaction, unless they're fawning up to the president or the CEO. Freezing is actually a very common reaction, and it takes the form of, I can't make a decision until I know more. You go away, emphasis on go away, and learn more about this and then come back and answer my questions. And I can repeat that cycle several times before I have to actually do anything about it. It's not a good thing, but it's a common and natural thing. All of these we need to make sure don't happen. We want effective decision making out of this executive, and that means we got to get the blood sugar back into the prefrontal cortex. So now that we've understood this, how do we do this? What actions can we take to make sure this doesn't happen? Well, first of all, it helps a lot if we know this executive. And I kind of stacked the deck when I set up the scenario and said, you're familiar with each other. Is the person you're dealing with someone who is inclined to stay in the situation, to engage and be part of what's going on? Or do they want to leave and come back later after you've done all the work? And then if they're in there, are they actually doing something, or are they just in there supervising silently? And these 4 quadrants will tell you, the reaction that you can expect. All right, and those correspond to the 4 Fs. If you don't know the person involved, you can see the symptoms. All right, a fawning person, as the name implies, is trying to make everyone happy. They're people pleasing. Their boundaries have collapsed, and they will agree to anything. And these are negative conditions. You don't want to go there. A freezing person may dissociate, their eyes glaze over, they don't want to be here, they tune you out, they may not answer your questions, and so on. I don't need to read the whole screen. What do we do about this, though? Well, as a leader, you definitely have a whole set of things that you can do to make this work better. And you're going to do it by understanding that you need to avoid it in the first place. Right there, you're off to a good start. You need to lead the executive through the situation. Often, especially junior people, will assume that because the person has a higher title, they're automatically a leader and they're going to make the decisions. You don't want to do that. You are the leader of your effort. You are the product owner. You own the situation. You need to ensure that any decisions the executive is going to make are decisions that will lead to success. For example, you don't want them coming down into the Scrum room and helping out. That does not lead to success. Now, how do you do this? You do this by realizing that perception is reality. You need to convey the perception that everything is under control so that they will treat it like it's under control, and it better be under control or you're just digging yourself a hole. Confusing the executive is deadly. If they ever doubt that you're just telling them the straight story, they're going to dig in deeper. They didn't get to be an executive by just accepting everything that gets thrown at them. And failure is always an option. You need to address that. So right now, as you are standing there in the door, the executive sees you as a source of danger. The executive sees you as creating an unsafe condition. Not fair, but that's the feeling that they have right now. So recognizing that project management is risk management. That is the single most important part of leading any kind of project, is having an understanding of what to do when things don't go according to plan. You need to be frosty. You need to be cool. You need to give the impression that you know what's going on. Get your own limbic system in order. Don't come into the office while you are excited. Calm down first. Create the understanding that you are safe. You are not going to make things worse. You are on the executive team. Now, how are you going to do this? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to have a good, clear understanding of the situation. When the executive says, how long is this going to delay us? Or when the executive says, what happened? Or when the executive says, well, how much does this stuff cost? Can we go down to Best Buy and get some more? You need to have answers to that. I don't know, I'll find out is not good. It's better than I don't know, but it's much better to say whatever the actual fact is. That's why you got together with the team before you came up to the office. And now you need to create safety. You need to convey the perception that you are able to handle the risk. Apollo 13 gets brought up a lot when talking about projects that have had stuff go wrong. There's a phrase out of that series of events that gets misquoted a lot. The first call from the capsule back to Houston was not, Houston, we've got a problem. Everybody in that capsule was a test pilot. Test pilots, if they're still in the air, they don't have a problem. They may need to take a little time to get the plane pointed back in the right direction. What they said, if you go back and actually listen to the audio tapes from NASA, they said, we have had a problem. There was a bang. They read their panels, they looked around, the air was not rushing out. Therefore, whatever happened, happened and now is done. They may have to do something about it, but they don't have a problem right now. They had a problem and then it ended. That kind of attitude will help a lot. So back to our example, as we're standing there in the door, the executive looks up. You don't really necessarily want to be dramatic and say we've had a problem. That's great for a movie because a movie is supposed to rile you up. It's supposed to get you excited. You might say something like, we're having to rework the storyboard. We're having to draw some more stories out of the backlog. I'm having the team choose more stories out of the backlog because some of the stories we're working on, we're not going to be able to complete. And putting it in that order is, I took some action because of a cause. You're not asking a question. You're doing something that you and the Scrum Master do. Now, you're going to get questions. You're going to get a big why question coming up, and you're expecting that, right? You're going to be focused on the problem, and you're going to have the answers. You're going to tell them, in this particular case, the network interface cards we expected aren't going to be delivered according to schedule. I'm in communication with the vendor, and I'm trying to get a commitment for a delivery date. The vendor hasn't replied yet. Okay? You don't have to have the problem solved, but you do have to have a complete understanding of what's going on. Now, it's tempting to try to be friendly about this. It's tempting to try to make the executive like you. It's your own version of the Fawn reaction. However, trying to share a moment of, yeah, you know, when things screw up, it can get really kind of sticky, is not what the executive wants to hear right now. The executive wants a sense of safety. So you don't just make casual comments. You explain the facts and you make statements about what you want to do. If there is something you want the executive to do, you have a very clear ask for that. The executive is probably going to want to get involved. The executive wants to be a leader. So it helps a lot if you can give the executive some decisions to make, which you have pre-formulated, and you're okay with either way the executive goes. And I say either way because you give the executive an A-B choice. You don't just throw it open and say, what should I do, boss? Okay, does this make sense? Never allow any doubt that you and your team are going to handle this. There will be consequences. There may be a difference in the product that gets delivered at the end of the sprint. There may be a reduction in capacity, velocity in the metrics because a thing happened, but it's all going to be taken under control. And you are doing all of this in a formal way. This doesn't mean yes sir, no sir sort of stuff, but it means staying focused on the facts and the issues. You communicate only to move your project towards completion. So if you don't want the executive to do anything, you can actually say, I've got this under control, boss. I'll keep you informed. How often would you like me to come by and let you know what's going on? And don't even open the door for them getting involved. If what you need is, for example, resources from another effort in the portfolio, you might say, hey, are there any other network cards? Can we even get one or two so that we can get a prototype going? And that's a kind of request that an executive might be happy to fulfill for you. I want to particularly comment on one thing that I see go wrong a lot, and that's no jargon. Project development, software development is a specialized field, and it has a specialized language. And as long as everybody understands the language and we're speaking in the same terms, that's great. If we're in an agile effort, you probably have metrics that have names like velocity or capacity or story points and so forth. If everybody understands those, you use those, but you don't make up stuff. And back when I was doing a lot of waterfall, I remember many of my projects had a red, yellow, green status traffic light. And of course, everybody wanted to be green. You could go yellow, but that got people excited. You never, ever, 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 ever wanted to go red because that caused executives to run all around in circles. And so as projects got into bad places, people would be reporting, well, it's kind of an orange, it's trending towards magenta, and they'd be making stuff up. Executives may not be technically as proficient as your team is. The executive may make a lousy DBA, but the executive didn't get the office by not knowing bullshit when it came around the corner. If you're making stuff up, they're probably going to pick up on that. And if they can't trust you, they don't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, they're in danger of an amygdala hijack, and they start doing things that don't get checked by their prefrontal cortex. So you really need to avoid doing that. Let's see if I can get this thing going again. So you report clearly, you communicate to move the project forward. Any communication that leads to confusion is a failure. So that, my status is orange stuff. What does that mean? Well, obviously what that means is your project's in deep trouble. You need to be concrete. You need to report the facts. You need to explain what's actually happening. Not I wish, not I hope, just what there is on the board. Use clear business terms, whatever they are in your environment. Use your metrics. If you're not measuring it, you're not paying enough attention to it. Report your facts, not your feelings. And be coherent. Have a plan. Think about what you're going to say in advance. Chatting is not delivering viable product. Okay? So, you talk about what can be done. What can we do under these situations? it may seem like there are things that are impossible. There are not as many impossible things as you might think. It can be accomplished. What you can't do is you can't do it with the time and money that you've been given. If you've been given enough time and enough money, you can probably accomplish it. I'll give you an example. There's this guy who said, I want to land a man on the moon, and I want to do it by the end of this decade. 7 years later, it happened. It took a lot of money. It took a huge team. It took a lot of time. But they did it. All right. So when the executive says, I want you to do this impossible thing, you say, of course, we can do that. I'll get back to you with the budget. And then you leave. That's the end of the conversation. You leave, you come back, and you say, I need $10 billion in 10 years. And the executive says, well, okay, then no. But it's not impossible, right? There's been some really huge projects that have accomplished great things. You, as a leader, identify obstacles and you identify solutions to those obstacles. You don't just throw up obstacles, because what is something that just gets in the way, that is always hindering you and never moving you forward? It's something that can trigger an amygdala hijack. You need to be on the executive side and say, well, okay, we're going to have to overcome this obstacle, and we can do that by throwing great buckets of money at it. Now, they're not going to want to necessarily do that, but it does show which side of the conversation you're on. You're not there just to tell them what they can't have. All right. So you discuss ways and means with your team, not with the executive. If you don't have the answer at the tip of your finger, you say, of course we can do that. I'll get back to you right after lunch. And then you go back to the team and you have the conversation, the realistic conversation. Then you come back and say, of course we can do it. It's just going to take a whole lot of stuff. You are paid to accomplish goals. You're not there to find reasons why you can't complete the project, even when the vendor doesn't deliver your network interface cards. Okay? And the best way to do that is to keep everyone around you feeling like you are safe, you're not making things worse, and in fact, you create safety, you're making things better. Okay? To do that, you communicate only solutions. And you be the person who figures out what's going on here. Okay? There's no tiger there, it's just branches. Or is there something deeper within that? Another obstacle that might have to be overcome. All right? This is not just a cute picture. I want you to see this and recognize that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the traditional FUD, are emotionally contagious, and they literally, physiologically, make it hard to think because they drain energy out of the prefrontal cortexes, which is what we're all here to practice using. Okay, so you need to be the opposite of FUD. You need to manage the emotional space of the situations you find yourself in. And the best way to do that, the simplest way that I can convey in this very short amount of time that I have, is to tell you, mirror the attitude you want to see. And that goes back to what I had. You're going to be frosty. You're going to be focused. You're going to convey to everyone around you. You're going to show everyone around you in an emotional way that it's under control. Okay? This is what we're up against. The hardware of our brains has not been upgraded for over 200,000 years. Literally, that's just anthropological fact. The environment in which we're expected to function is wildly different. It's unimaginably different. So we're running on some very old software in a very new situation. By being aware of that, we can be hackers in the old sense of people who figured out how to make systems do things that they weren't designed to do, make them do things that they were designed to do, but badly. They found ways to repurpose systems. An emotionally intelligent person is a hacker of other people's emotions. Use your powers for good. Okay? Any questions? Went through that pretty quickly. Are they all asleep? Everybody here?
I'm here.
Okay.
I don't.
What do you think?
I really thought that this was a good overview of how to prepare yourself for difficult conversations and also showing the perspective that somebody else may receive that information under. It was actually very, intriguing, and it was nice to look at the visuals and read some of the quotes and jokes. So I definitely enjoyed this training. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is what I do. This was an extremely thin slice of my larger training. I provide a workshop, and there's a whole lot of words here. I don't need to read this for you. But I teach this from ground zero. I assumed for this talk that you, the product owner, already had an understanding of emotional intelligence. I can provide that understanding if you don't have it already. This is my company. I love to connect with people. I'd be very, very happy to connect on LinkedIn with anybody here that I'm not connected with already. And with that, I'm just going to turn it back to Sherman.
One question, Sean.
Yes, Lee.
I'm kind of wondering, what's the magic to appear cool versus appear indifferent and not caring? Like, what's the way?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That really is. Yeah, that's a great question. How do you appear cool and not indifferent? Well, it helps a lot if what you're trying to show you sincerely feel. And I really doubt that you sincerely feel indifferent. So let your interest in the situation come through. This, whatever it is definitely something that you want to make right, that you want to fix, right? If it's a problem. But you want, so perhaps instead of cool, let's use the word competent. If you have the attitude of, yeah, we got to do something about this, but I know how to do something about this. I know how to fix this. It's just going to take a little bit of time. It might take a little bit of money. It might slow us down for a period of time, but I know what we've got to do. I hope this is a good analogy. If you got a flat tire and you have a jack and a spare and you know how to change a tire, you're really interested in changing the tire so that you can complete your trip, but you've got all the tools and you know how to do it, and you're going to get your hands dirty and it's going to be annoying, and you want to make sure that you get off the side of the road and you do it safely, but you're not upset about it. You're not panicking. You definitely aren't going to want to be panicking about this. You don't want to show fear. You just want to show competence. I got this. And recognize you're part of a good team of people. Okay, as the product owner, you've got a Scrum Master who is the one who's actually going to be coordinating the team. You've got other people in the company you can turn to. You've got subject matter experts who can help you go through the causation chain of, okay, we don't have network interface cards, so which stories can we not do now without network interface cards, in my example? And you can work out the decision tree or the causality tree of the error situation. And then you can go look at the stories and break them into lists of ones that are, actually 3 lists, ones you cannot do at all, ones that you can do partially, and ones that you can completely do because they don't involve the network interface cards or whatever it is that's gone wrong. So the way to appear cool is to have a deep understanding of what's going on, as deep as you can possibly get. Have faith in your team, which you've talked to, and hopefully they've given you that faith. And still show your interest. I'm going to take care of this, boss. Okay, I can say, I'm going to take care of this, boss, and convey certainty that I'm going to take care of it. I'm interested. I want to make sure it happens. And I'm not gonna get too excited about it. I'm just gonna do it. I eat disasters for lunch. Okay. Yeah.
And I think,
David. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw David's hand up. Was that you,
oh no,
Rick?
go
I'll
ahead,
get to you
David.
next.
I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, David.
I'll use two things, one of which is the term control.
Mhm.
I had a therapist who's a somatic therapist once who used the word regulate as a better word, because he says there's many times we want to control something, we try to control it, and then we realize we can't control it, and then it feels more out of control. But he went through an exercise where he said, think of a traumatic event in your life. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but close your eyes and make it, feel it get worse. Let it get a little worse, and then bring it back down, and let it get a little worse, bring it back down. He says the truth is you can regulate things, but if you tell yourself that you can control it and you try to clamp down, especially when you're panicked, you're not going to be as successful. So I thought that was a really good lesson, and it was applicable. But I recall back to being an IT consultant, and I had a company that was venture capital funded small beverage company, and they were working people to death all the time. Well, PG&E came by, their power company, and shut off the power. Said, we're taking your power. This is before everything was up in the cloud, and they wanted us to come up with a solution because all they could think of was the work. And I was thinking of how can we turn this into a positive. First, they want to bring a generator, and I said that's going to make the guys in the street really cranky if you plug in power while they're working on it. So they thought of all these technology solutions, and truly it was a business problem. I had them call their insurance company. They got utility outage insurance coverage for those 2 days, and I said, now you take these 2 days, go to a hotel suite, go to somebody's house, buy lunch, figure out why you're so far behind. Figure out why you're suffering all the time. Solve that problem. Use this as a gift. And so sometimes you have to think not just at how do I solve this problem, but how can I turn it into a positive from another angle?
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for that addition, that input. The term regulated is actually a very good one, very applicable to what I teach. And I was afraid that it was going to fall into the jargon category of not being particularly helpful. But yes, in emotional intelligence, we talk about keeping our feelings regulated and avoiding becoming dysregulated, which is letting stuff get out of control, to switch back to the other term. I agree with you completely. Thank you for that addition. Ricky, you had something?
No, and in the same lines as David, I always use the, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. The only thing that we can control is our emotions and how we react to those things. And so keeping that in mind, it's just taking a deep breath. And like you said, we do have a big team that we can go, okay, this is the scenario. How do we move the pieces?
Right.
And they're the experts. They're the experts, and they're going to say yes, no, and then have a solution. So when you talk to your executives, you go, we're moving, and you're not apathetic, or uninvolved or anything like that, because you're already bringing a solution to what is already happening. So you're becoming proactive rather than reactive.
Yes.
And that's always a plus. Especially for executives. So
Yes.
like most of the time they go, okay, you got it. Let me know if you need anything from me, and they walk away.
Yeah. And we like that response, right? Unless we actually need them to do something, at which point we need to make sure we're very clear about the ask, right?
And
Thank you. Yes, great.
There's people that constantly are preaching teamwork and how the team, can solve problems and do all this. A lot of times when it's in a situation where I'm a Scrum Master, I get a problem like this. It's like, oh no, how am I going to fix it? Lisa
Right.
Atkins says, take it to the team. a lot of bright minds and a lot of people who have good perspective.
Yep. Yeah, and they know things you don't know, and there's nothing wrong with that. So there's another part that you know, just applies peripherally here. If you love to learn, genuinely want to learn things, you will be very happy when the subject matter expert on your team says, didn't you know, okay, so we didn't get those super fancy network interface cards, but we've got a whole bin of the old stuff over there. That's enough that we can keep moving forward until the good stuff comes in. Yeah, and you go, wow, I didn't know we could do that. So having an open-minded attitude is another thing I didn't get into. When the shock first hits you, you know, in this case, it would be when you first read that email. There's an acronym or an initialism I use: stop, breathe, notice, reflect, and respond. So stop, when the shock hits you, literally, stop moving, take your hands off the keyboard, shut up, take a deep breath, as a couple of you have said. Notice what's really going on here. Okay, I'm looking at an email message. It is delivering to me bad news. What exactly is it delivering? Okay, it's saying that we don't know when the stuff's going to arrive. Reflect on that. What do I need to do? I need to go talk to my team. And then respond. In other conditions, other situations, you may get to that response step, and after reflection, you may realize, my best response is to go get another cup of coffee. I don't need to do anything about this. And it would make things a lot worse if I did jump in an impulsive, perhaps dysregulated, perhaps amygdala hijacked manner. Right? Does that make sense? Seeing any hands up?
What else? Other questions for Sean? Insights, shares?
Oh, question.
Yes, sir.
How do you take care of situations in which where you weren't the person who was alerted of the situation by a user, but you learned that from your CIO because the person who reported it didn't report it to your department, they reported it, they went directly to the CIO thinking that they can get control. So how do you control situations like that in which the CIO is already triggered because they went past?
Yeah, okay, very good. Near worst case example here. Someone's already gotten hijacked and they're out of control. They're dysregulated. They're running around like the proverbial headless chicken, and they're going to come in and they're going to help you. Well, so you go back to those principles. I believe my slide deck is going to be shared, so you can go back and look at the bullet list again. You're going to make sure that the executives that are running around like headless chickens understand that you are safe. You're not going to make it worse. And in fact, you are a source of safety. Anything that they send your way, you're going to make better, at least not make it worse. And you're going to convey facts concisely, coherently, and clearly. You're not going to be using a bunch of double talk jargon. It's not a magenta shading to orange kind of status situation. I got this, boss. I am going to do this. I'm going to do this. And what do you think, boss? Should I do A or should I do B? And you lay both of those out very, very clearly. You do not say, what should I do? And then leave it hanging open. That's just an invitation for more headless chickening. You say, do you want me to do A or do you want me to do B? And if they come along and say, why don't you do C? You know enough about the situation, having talked to the team, that you can explain why C is less good than A or B. Right? And all the way along, you know what's going on. You've got it under control. You've got the best team in the world working for you, working with you. You can bring in subject matter experts. Boss, I may have to take another sprint cycle to finish this up. I'm not going to deny that this is having an effect. We may have to spend more money. We may have to completely buy a whole new set of network interface cards, and that's going to cost, because I looked it up, $20,000, whatever the heck the number is. Okay, you don't just say we may have to buy new cards, because what's the next question? What's that going to cost, right? So because you've taken the time to think about this in advance, you have played this through in your mind. If I say buy some more, they're going to say how much. I say it's going to take more time, they're going to say how much, right? You've played this out in advance, and all the way along, the impression you are giving is that you are not the tiger going to eat them. You are the refuge that they are going to turn to, because you're going to make it all better for them. It's not going to be free. It's not going to be without cost, but you know what to do. And that's how you're going to position yourself as a leader. And of course, as you said, if somebody's run to the CIO, it's not going to be just your work effort that you're on right now that's going to be effective. You may find yourself in a position to be able to help out with other efforts. And of course, that's going to look good too. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Or as I used to say, technology is holding you hostage. I'm just the SWAT team.
That's good. That's good. Now you see, I like your posture. I like what you're saying here. You are getting into the be cool, honey bunny. You are looking competent. You're looking unflustered. You look like you know what we're gonna do.
God, I wish I could do that at work every day.
It just takes thought and practice.
A different company.
Perhaps.
Sean, a lot of what I hear are traits and experiences we'd like to coach our Scrum Masters for. New Scrum Masters, they learn the framework, they learn about the Agile mindset, and then they go try to practice that according to the framework and the Scrum guide. As they grow into advanced and professional Scrum Masters, what you brought today, I think, would be super valuable for them, right?
Yeah.
Because they are that, epitomous servant leader.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things we want. How do they help make great teams,
Mm-hmm.
right? Making great teams is a lot of what you brought today,
Yeah.
having that sense of control. I know what's going on. I'm aware. I'm bringing impediments up. Here are some solutions, right? They don't have to have all the answers, but they have to have visibility and transparency to those answers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The developers on the Scrum teams are probably your experts, and they say, here's what we should do about it. You as the Scrum Master might say, hey, here's what my team is saying we should do about it. I'd like to do A, can I get that buy-in? So that's what I'm hearing a little bit. I think this is coaching.
Perfect summary. Absolutely perfect summary. And this is becoming more important as the world moves more agile. On waterfall projects, you could hide behind the waterfall. You could say, we missed this milestone, network interface cards didn't show up. That shoves everything off to the right. I can plug that into my Gantt chart into Microsoft Project, and I got a new end date for the project. And it's a month later. And everybody runs around screaming because we can't miss the delivery date. But you could still hide behind the waterfall. That's what the Gantt chart says. With Scrum, with Agile, it doesn't have to just be Scrum, any Agile, you've got so many options to do stuff out of the originally planned order. And you deliver that minimum viable product every sprint cycle, or continuously if you're doing one of the Kanban style approaches. That involves a lot more communication, right? And communication has to move the project forward. It can't be confusing. It can't be just casual chat that allows doubt to creep into anybody's mind. So yeah, Scrum Masters, product owners, anybody that is involved in tracking the progress of the effort needs these kinds of skills.
Anything else for Sean?
I should put some book recommendations up.
Yeah. I haven't read Humble Inquiry, Emotional Intelligence. If you're thinking of the Dan Goleman book, that's like a major foundation.
It's a hard book to read.
It's not, he's not that great a writer, but his ideas carry it on through. I'll throw one in, Flourish by Martin Seligman. Another
And
one.
Ricky, you had your hand raised. What would you like to
Yeah,
share?
yeah. Just a kind of an addition, because I had a very similar event happen where my executive VP, I had a morning appointment. Everything was great. I said, I'll be back. I come back and everybody's running around, and I guess the executive VP got a call. And so he then starts making all sorts of calls, and I literally had to go up into the elevator, go into his office, and I said, timeout.
Yeah.
You just made everybody running around downstairs crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You are enforcing the stop part of SBNRR. Stop. Take your hand off the keyboard.
Yeah.
Zip it.
And so, and it was about managing his anxiety, because then he was trickling it down to everybody else. I go, give me half an hour. Let me go talk to our teams. Let me go regroup everybody. I ordered lunch and I said, okay, let's all get together. This is what's going on. And so by the time we finished lunch, we're like, oh, we're better. We can do this. Okay. And, and
Perfect.
so,
Perfect.
but it was about managing other people's expectations, their emotions. They're going off the rails because they do want to fix it. So
yeah, it's a perfect example of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt created by the one person being contagious and causing everybody, because, hey, think about it from an evolutionary point of view. If one guy in your hunting party screams tiger and runs away, do you actually want to stop and look around and make sure he was right? Because what if he was? You're now not, you're not around to teach that anymore. So fear is contagious because that is evolutionarily a survival trait. But that's not appropriate anymore. Okay, so we have to learn to use this big energy hungry prefrontal cortex to deal with the fact that this amygdala is running away with us. Perfect example. Thank you.
All right, let's do a shout out to Sean for Fight, Flight, Freeze, Fawn, and Fooey. Sean, thank you so much. It was an awesome talk. For as long as I've known you, you are one of my favorite storytellers. So
thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to stop the recording here.